As part of LFA 2022, we're sharing 5 news stories exploring the key people and projects shaping the Royal Docks. From City Hall and Kamal Chunchie Way to Tate and Lyle, the Factory Project, and London Design and Engineering UTC. We hope by listening to these conversations, you'll learn more about both the history and present day of the Royal Docks. This series followed on from our Power podcast series in 2020, which explored and celebrated the hidden yet fundamental infrastructure site at the heart of keeping the Royal Docks running. For our final conversation, we're chatting to 4 students from the London Design and Engineering UTC, means to them, and what they think the future should look like. With me, I have Kev, Jericho, Mahia and Tianna. To start with, does everyone want to introduce themselves and your connection to the college or the Docks?
I'll start. My name is Tianna. I live in Essex. I would say more Greater London than Essex because it's closer to like Romford. But obviously I chose to go to London Design Engineering UTC because it offers engineering, architecture, design, and I was interested in that field.
Yeah, so my name is Kevin, or Kev, whatever you prefer to call me, and I just live in Ilford, which is not too far from here, just about a 15-minute drive. And I came to London Design Engineering to study architecture and engineering because I have a vast interest in both those subjects, and I've noticed that this school has to offer a lot of technical courses and a lot of hands-on stuff, which I quite enjoy.
Hi, my name is Jericho Cabalan. I'm the college president of London Design and Engineering UTC. I came here because I wanted to study, same thing as Kev, architecture and engineering. I feel like the way we design the world around us, it changes how people feel about the places they want to be.
My name is Mahia. I live in Whitechapel, so Jack the Ripper. And I came to this college too for architecture. I joined in year 10 and they gave us like a letter home asking if we wanted to join. And immediately I saw like the subject choices and options that they provide. So I was like, definitely this is something I'd want to do.
Amazing. So, you've been learning a lot about Royal Docks for a while. I know in your studies, particularly potentially in the last few weeks, you've been looking a little bit more about the Royal Docks as well. Is there any stories that you've particularly found really interesting? What is it about the Royal Docks that you love? Or you don't like? If there's something like that.
If you go down the docks, there's a few abandoned buildings, and one of them's this giant, it's basically a white box. And the reason why it's abandoned is because in 1917, 50 tons of TNT exploded inside of the abandoned building.
It was actually known as basically the greatest explosion ever to happen in London. 70,000 buildings just gone, 73 people killed. Because they were making, I think it was something like munitions, something like that. They were making their like TNT base just for like mining purposes, because that's why we had the DLR going across. Because obviously a lot of the transports for like the ships and everything were getting from like the East India Company and stuff like that were coming in through the docks, and they obviously needed to clear out certain pathways so they can transport things a lot easier, because you can't go, because that's the thing with marshlands, alright, it's not just a straight plane, it's just like all suddenly you're just going down a straight thing and it's just a dip, then like another hill, so they had to basically clear out a specific path, and that's why we sort of utilise the DLRs right now for transport, but previously they're actually used for shipping like goods and stuff like that across from different ships.
Amazing. So can you still see this factory today?
You can. If you walk along the docks towards O2, you can still see the building. Surprising how it's still standing, but it's there if you want to take a look.
I had no idea about that.
I had no idea.
This is the first time I'm hearing it.
I had no idea either. That's interesting. What year was that in, did you say?
1917 it should be. It's a fairly long time ago.
That's a really long time ago.
There's something in North Woolwich where like there's near the Royal Pavilion, if you know that place, there's like a couple of houses that lead towards there, and apparently there was like a couple that opened a pub that's basically haunted or something. I don't know, it's like a lot of old folk tale or something, and I just found that interesting because there's not many people that I think believe in that kind of stuff. But then when I looked into it, there was like even police investigations upon it or something. So I was like, wow, okay, that's quite interesting.
Do you think it might be haunted?
I mean, I read through the whole story and I was like, maybe it is. I'm not sure.
You've seen these buildings from the outside. Have you ever been into any of these buildings?
Not really, no.
I don't think I want to go to a building that's haunted.
I think one of the exciting things about the dock is that there's so many different types of buildings, just as you mentioned. I guess you talked about the older buildings, and then there's some newer buildings coming around as well. Do you have any thoughts about those ones as well?
I like how they're redeveloping, like, even when you think about like Newham, you don't really think about all the new stuff. You think about like all the old buildings, all the old flats, all the kids, etc. But now, because of like all the new apartments and how they're like refurbishing stuff, and like just the layout of the new buildings as well. For example, the crystal, like how it's built and how it looks, the aesthetic of it is really, really pretty, and it brings out like a nicer side of Newham. It makes it look more pleasing, and like more people will actually want to move into Newham, because now they wouldn't think it's like some poorer or like some just not very good area. Like it looks like a good area. So I feel like the dock like helps highlight that Newham is a good place and it looks good, and it can just be the same as like any other place in London.
I mean, like, I'm just going to add on to that something. I totally agree with you. I quite like that. It's that sort of postmodern architecture that you see in all these buildings in the docks sort of thing. That, like, you know, you got all these like bright colours and like, you know, like weird shapes here and there sort of thing. And then you've also got like certain features that are also borrowed from like other periods that like contribute to it. And it's like, wow, that's actually quite cool. And it changes your mind on your view on like Newham in itself, because I remember like my dad telling me back when he was younger sort of thing, he'd say like, oh, Newham didn't really have that great of a reputation, but because of these like new buildings just going up sort of thing, we're basically bringing in better foot traffic and better like people coming in sort of thing, and more jobs and everything like that, all because of just like, you know, a building looks so great and cool sort of thing. It's just attracting more foot traffic, and it's basically just boosting Newham's economy, which is amazing for everyone who lives here sort of thing. And it just changes also the people around it, because before it just used to be like back like a long time ago, something like during the explosion. Newham had this like reputation of like with like really poor working conditions, and it was just like horrible, dirty and scruffy. But like within the past like 30 or 40 years or so, the really development of Newham sort of thing, like mainly the docks sort of, it's basically just like, you know, gotten rid of that idea of like, you know, poverty, and it's now bringing in all these like, you know, great new structures that are quite enjoyable to see, and they're also practical. If you look at, for example, like when you came in, you were talking about the basin pumping station right next to New City Hall and the DLR station, and the shapes of the pipes sort of thing. If you have a look at them, it shows function basically. You can see it's a pumping station basically of some sort, but then it's also got these like colours that bring a maritime tradition in, and it also adds a bit of like joy and practicality to like the building, because instead of just having like, you know, a silver pump station, that's it, drop it there, and then like, you know, just go away. Like it looks a bit more pleasing sort of thing. So just like seeing just a big metal pipe eroding from the ground.
I feel like it shows you why certain parts of architecture are like really, really helpful, because like them changing like the buildings and the land space and stuff, it opens up the area. It makes it like, for the people that live in the community, they'll want to walk through certain areas, they'll want to do more stuff within the area because they're more proud of their area, because how the area now looks. So I feel like that links to like landscape architecture and stuff, because you need to like look after your area to be proud of your area. Like if it looks down or poorer or just dark and it's not opened up, it doesn't really feel safe. It's also comfort as well for it to be opened up.
I think I strongly agree with what Tianna's saying, because I remember listening to this TED Talk a while back on architecture and how it's about defining spaces and giving it meaning and character and a sense of quality. And when people have that sense of quality, they value the place in which they live more. So like you said, they take care of the place, they clean up after themselves rather than leaving litter around. You can sort of see it here in London now with if you go to Central, most of the streets there are relatively clean. Like, you won't really see any litter there. But if you go some places closer to Dagenham, or where the industrial places are, there's quite a lot of rubbish there. And there's litter, the place generally isn't as clean compared to the more nicer looking parts. So, of course, there are a few socioeconomic issues with that, but you do come from a right place with how the look of a place can change a person's view on where they live.
And like when you go to London, like Chelsea and stuff, and like the road, it's all painted like with light colours. Like there's like white houses, there's just structures that are white, or the floor just looks brighter and cleaner. Where, for example, Dagenham, as you said, like you can go there, the houses are darker. They're not as new builds, they're like old build houses. So the stonework, the brickwork are darker colours, the flooring is just darker, and it looks more dark and dirtier, I would say, compared to obviously London, where, because it's brighter, it just looks cleaner. Like a white table, if it's all white, it looks cleaner. If it's like dark brown or dark black and just scribbling on it, like, of course you're going to think it's dirtier, and you'll also want to scribble as well to make a mark.
Those bright colours, actually, it's weird because, like, just thinking about it, sort of thing, like how much difference it makes just using a darker colour and a lighter colour can just like do a splitting difference between like a clean aesthetic and like a really horrible looking aesthetic. And yeah, you said like, you know, the light colours there, it's weird because like if we use like these beautiful, like, you know, bright and vibrant colours, it gives this really nice clean aesthetic, and it's so visually, like, you know, pleasing. It makes what could be just a dull block building into something that is something of interest to people, something that people just want to see, sort of thing, from their balcony, sitting at home, or from the windows, sort of thing. They don't mind living across from, like, you know, a building that is so beautiful and colourful and vibrant instead of like a big, like, you know, stone brick wall, basically.
Yeah. I feel like you can all talk so much about how the buildings make you feel and what your thoughts about them are. Is there anyone who wants to be an architect? Or you've mentioned about being local and making an impact and really caring for your environment and the spaces around you. Is that something that you'd want to be involved with as well in the future?
Definitely.
Personally,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of us here are interested in built environment and architecture being the main thing. But just very simple ways of changing the shape of something can make it drastically different. You can even look at the automotive industry, how old cars are like giant blocks, they weren't that efficient. But then you look at newer cars now, they're sleeker, they're smoother. All they've done is just change a shape, and then all of a sudden their design is more effective than what it was before. And I think we can use that same mentality on buildings. You can sort of see it now, since we have more curved buildings, the more progress into more modern ages, because we find curves more appealing. It's more aerodynamic, or it reduces the amount of material that you'll need. It's just small changes like that that can really make a massive difference.
You can actually see that in the O2, actually. Like, you know, that's one of the biggest things in the dock, sort of thing, is the O2. It's massively famous from it. You can see it from space, and it's in the shape of a dome, and that attracts in like so many people. And in fact, architects drew that inspiration from just time and space. They literally looked at the trajectory of stars and comets to create panels on the canopy, basically. And the O2 in itself, basically, is quote-unquote a testament to optimism and innovation and a hope for the future, basically.
I feel like the O2 is a major like attraction. Like now I wouldn't say, oh, I would really want to go to the O2, but when I was younger, like, and I heard O2 and I saw O2 and I saw people dining in the sky and stuff, it just seemed like that's something everyone would want to do. It's good for like bringing people into the area as well. So yeah, it's really, really local to the docks. So that's
It was
good.
such a step up, like, from before, I think. Before that, I didn't, because I'm obviously from Tower Hamlets, so
Yeah.
I'm not from Newham. So there wasn't much that I knew about Newham. But then after the O2, I was like, oh, I thought like that was the main attraction to Newham. Like that was mostly the only time I would come into Newham.
Same, because I'm not from
Yeah.
Newham or like East London or just Newham or East London. It's a thing where once Stratford was made and there was the whole Westfield and like everyone was going to Westfield for like different restaurants, and then O2 and like there's an arena and concerts and just food. It was like, yeah, I want to go to East London, Newham, like I want to go to see these places, I want to try new stuff, and it's a good attraction for people that are like not really from around here because it's nice.
You touched on a really interesting point. So we mentioned earlier that the docks are changing quite a lot. But if you had the power to say what could be included and what shouldn't be included in the new or future Royal Docks, or not necessarily just the Royal Docks, we can think about East London, we can think about outside of East London as well. What's really important to you? I think you're probably a generation just below I am. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So for your generation, what's really important for you? What do you want to see more of in London?
I would say within this specific area, like Royal Dock, by West Silvertown Station, is actually like just land. Like there's a factory next to it, which is the Golden Syrup Factory.
Britvic, I think.
I think.
Yeah, Britvic, I think.
I think. And it's just empty space. So if they were to turn that into either more apartments, like modern apartments, like the ones that they have near the Sainsbury's, or if they were to turn that into like a big shopping centre, like a new Selfridges, that would bring them in like a lot of people, and it will just up the area's value as well. And also I've seen how that they're creating like a new school there called Oasis, and I feel like that's good for the community because there's obviously a lot of people within like the flats now and like the apartments and the houses and the little villages that they have. So it's like them children need to go to school in their own area instead of always travelling. Like it's great that we have the whole DLR and like it's easier to get to like different places because the DLR is quite quick and there's so many links within it. But it would be good that they have now our own school of their own rather than just a primary school.
To build on what Tianna said as well, just creating buildings and regenerating old areas, seeing things get made. I think with making a school, like what you said, like with Oasis, it's not just about the building itself, it's about the processes that go into making the building. Because when you construct the building, you need to hire labourers, you need management, you need engineers to come in and see the building. And for that to happen, it gives people jobs. So all throughout that building's life, it's constantly giving towards the community. From just being a piece of rubble to a massive building that people can go to and learn.
It really helps seeing more places like that go around the docks.
Especially since Newham is seen as like an impoverished borough. So having more jobs, having people come in and create jobs or start things, and to really put themselves into the community so they can give back, it's
really quite inspiring to see something like that happen around the docks.
I feel like in terms of like new stuff to building like housing, because there is currently like a housing problem within like the UK. So building the new houses is good because we're housing more people, especially because there's also space for it. Obviously, we don't want the area to be like just overloaded with different houses and apartments because that would just make
Like block flats or something.
Yeah.
That's ugly. Yeah.
We wouldn't want like it to be compact. However, a few more houses would be great for the whole like people need places to live and the housing issue. So yeah.
Something I'd say I'd like to see is like from what I've seen, the Royal Docks, most of the housings are mainly similar in how they look. So maybe like more creativity with like the design aspect of it. But there are like problems with that because I do know that it will cost more probably when making it more creative or something. But if there was a way of doing that, I think that would really like increase everyone's mood in a sense, because at the end of the day, everyone goes back to their home. So where you live is like literally the most important aspect of your life, I'd say.
And even like when you make it or just you move on with your life and your career and you may move out of the area, it's good to be happy with like where you've come from and be proud of where you come from and speak about where you've come from instead of it being like negative. It's good for it to be positive. So to help them make it more positive. I would say. Adding like stuff what Mahia said would be great.
I mean, am I right in thinking so none of you live in the Royal Docks?
No.
But do you have, obviously you come to college in the Royal Docks, do you
Yeah.
still feel, even though you don't live here, do you have a real connection to the Royal Docks since you've been starting to
Definitely.
study here, and what's
Yeah.
that been like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been here for I've been in this college in fact for a few years now. Everyone sort of knows me for like just being here for forever basically. And it's weird because like I'm discovering a lot of new things about it. So I think even like I've been coming here for like so many years now, and it's that bond. You sort of create that bond sort of thing, like going to like the chip shop sort of thing with your friends, that sort of thing, and just maybe going to the park with your friends, stuff like that. And that's the thing. You want somewhere that has emotional attachment to do so well, because that's the thing. Like, you know, if you spend a certain amount of time in a certain area, you're going to be attached to it. And I suppose that's why I have sort of like a sense of passion sort of thing to improve this area, because I mean I want to see it thrive. I don't want to come back here in like, you know, 20 years or so, like, or whenever I finish my university degree, come back here and all suddenly it's gone downhill and like it's back to poverty again. I want to see it continue development. I want to see it thrive. I want to see this area like, you know, probably be one of the better areas in London basically to go to. I want this area to be like, you know, so that tourists from like different countries go, oh, we need to go to Newham, that's got that there, that's got that there, sort of thing, instead of like saying, oh, let's go to, I don't know, somewhere like Tottenham or something like that, sort of, why bother, sort of thing, come to Newham, sort of. Because that's the thing, you want this place to do well. You want to see people here, you want to see people happy, you want to see good people here, that's the thing. You don't want to just bring, and I don't mean to be rude to anyone, but you don't want to bring like, you know, people who are just going to ruin it, sort of thing. You want to have people who respect the community. That's what you want. You want to build a sense of community. You want to know your neighbour. You don't want to just be like, I don't know this person next door. You want to be able to like know your neighbour, stuff like that. And that's the thing, with these sort of different structures, with this clean aesthetic, and like, you know, like you're saying, with like, you know, better looking residential areas, we can bring in better people, something more community like homes, sort of, and that will really form like a connection in the area, and that will seriously like, you know, boost this area a lot.
But I would say that from having people that I know that live in Newham, in different parts of Newham, I would say that they are a community already. Like, they do know their neighbours, like everyone knows each other on their roads, and like just walking in certain parts of Newham with my friends that live in Newham, like they will all say hello to random people in the area because they've known each other, they've all grown up with each other. So I'll say that they already have a community, like they already all socialise with their neighbours and know their neighbours. So I would kind of disagree with the whole
Yeah, I
community.
think it's because like the negative is portrayed so much,
Yeah.
people sometimes forget.
So I suppose then,
about
yeah,
the
it's more sort of like,
positives.
it just become like a stereotype almost,
Yeah.
And I think maybe perhaps breaking down that stereotype sort of thing, because again, I've just been proven wrong here, and this is coming from like a stereotype that I just know, and I think again, like, you know, circling back with this better like infrastructure sort of thing,
Yeah.
we can break down that stereotype.
Yeah, I feel like I would hope that Newham gets a better stereotype, because before I came to Newham, I didn't really have like much of like a good perspective on Newham.
Yeah.
But once I've
Yeah.
been around Newham and been around like obviously this uni, and I've walked around the docks many times to get to like my friends' houses and stuff, I will like, I wouldn't say played out, I'm a bit too old to play out, but like hanged around. Not even hanged around. been around like that type of area. I would say that I have a way better perspective on Newham. Like even like with the whole poverty like crisis, I'll say maybe. But I would say that a lot of places in Newham, or a lot of people in Newham, have good jobs and they're doing good stuff and they have a lot of good things going for them. So it's not just all poverty. And I would say that a lot of places in Newham are not very dark, like they're very bright, or they're quite open, especially around like the new bit. I think it's Pronton Dock. Like they have, they have a new bit and it's open, it's nice, and it's by the water. And there's even like a nice gym place that they've made
and
there.
like a little kids
And
playground,
yeah, and there's
which
little
is
like
nice.
grass places. I think that kind of links to architecture, like landscape architecture,
Have you
because
seen like their benches, like they're
Yeah.
all weird shapes, but they're really nice to see and just sit on, because you're like, I've never seen that, let me
it's
sit on
so
it.
aesthetically pleasing, and a lot of areas don't have that.
Yeah.
And like you wouldn't expect Newham to have that, but Newham has that. So I feel like there's a lot of good things about Newham, and a lot of things that are separated from the stereotypes and the poverty types. Like there's a lot of positives about Newham already.
Yeah, not even I knew that, so yeah, I didn't know about it now, so fair enough, yeah.
It would have been really nice if you picked up some things that are needed in the area, so things like housing, it's needed, but also it's balancing that with the history that is here and the people that already live here. how do you think we could balance the history, where we are in the present, and then the future as well? I know that's quite a hard question.
Looking at Jericho, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, I think similar to what the London Festival of Architecture does, what they do, they have this program called Pews and Perches, where students come along, they design a bench, and they put it along various places in Neom. Some of them you can find literally scattered across the docks, so you can have a leisurely walk and take a look at the pieces of art that's on display. I think we can sort of recreate that, but have the docks seen as almost like a museum, where, as you mentioned before, 1912, the huge big explosion, we can have like a little plaque there with an article on it, or with a historical document of what really happened there, and then people can come along, they'll be like, oh, that's new, and then they see a picture of the building and they see the actual thing in front of them, and all of a sudden they learn a bit about the history. I think it's important that we have that we're able to remind ourselves of what this place used to look like. And then at the end, where you go to the more modern places, you'll see more newer, more modern buildings. And then it sort of makes you think that we're traversing from history, from barren land to some place that's so grand and huge and amazing, with a bunch of companies and people working there. I think that should be the way how we see the Docklands. We should be able to read up on the history, to see it, but to also remember to live in the present and look for the future. I think that's what we should look for.
I really like how Jericho wants to incorporate the past. Because I feel like the history of Neom is so important, especially to the people that live here and have grew up here. Like, the history of it will be really, really important to them. So I don't feel like in the future it should be like concealed or like just
Something to be ashamed of.
yeah, like I feel like it's good to put the history into it. I like that how people can educate themselves when they come here. So Jericho saying that they should put like panels and you can read it. I feel like that is really good because you can read about the past and know more about the past of Neom, as it is just as important of the future of Neom.
I mean, like, I actually totally stand that because if you look at Silvertown sort of thing, not a lot of people actually know how that was named. And that's actually named after a clothing factory, Samuel Silver's waterproof clothing. So that's something interesting again, like, you know, just those little small things here and there that just contribute sort of thing. I mean, it's important to pay tribute to those things.
There's more value when you know the context behind something instead of just knowing it flat out. So I think that is a good point you made of bringing up the past.
Like you said, we want people to come to Neom and be like, you know what, I don't want to go to Central, I don't want to see the Big Ben or the London Eye. I want to see the docks for once. I want to take a walk along the docks. I know right now it may seem funny, but just imagine in the future you get people coming here and they sort of think that, wait a minute, this place looks unrecognizable from what it used to look like. Our history and the past of what this entire place used to be. I think it's amazing that we can see how quickly and how drastic the changes are.
I feel like so the other day I was in the car with my dad. This is irrelevant to what I'm about to say, but he was telling me, we were driving like past Stratford, and obviously he's into like housing and like real estate and stuff. So he was telling me how he was actually offered with an opportunity one time to buy a flat in Stratford, but back in then times it was like 2002, and Stratford wasn't like something, it wasn't a place that you would want to buy a flat in, but he wasn't really interested. Like, his friends were interested, and then like 2016 when Stratford started to peak because Westfield was made and everyone started coming in and loads of people from like different places were coming out to Stratford, and he really regretted that he didn't invest in Stratford. Like, sad for him, but he should have invested in Stratford. It's like, people should invest in Neom, invest in the docks, because in the future it was going to be such a great place. Like, it's already come such a far way. To now have like the city hall is going to be in Neom. Like, you would never think the city hall would be in Neom probably like 30 years ago. 10 years ago, yeah. But like, for it to now be in Neom, it's like, it's just bring up the values, bring up attention, like, it's just going to show such a drastic change. It's going to peak so much as well.
I mean, like,
So yeah.
I think we're coming to the end of time. We covered so much already. But is there one final thing that you'd want, if people are listening and they don't know the docks very well. There might be some people who live in the docks and they know the docks very well. But if there's people that it's the first time they're hearing something about the docks, is there one final thing you'd want them to know?
If you're looking to invest in it.
Invest. Come down to Newham, come to the docks, take a stroll, stop by. There's even a nice cafe there. It's Italian, they do some great pasta. You know, just come down and just look at it. It's actually, especially in summer, it's really, really beautiful. The sun's out. You can even do like wakeboarding and stuff like that. Activities for kids as well.
You can walk your little pooches down, like, you know, the dock sort of thing. Yeah,
just come down.
Come have a look.
Come to the docks. Try it out. Be open-minded.
Would definitely agree with you there. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. But thank you to our guests, Kev, Jericho, Mahia and Tianna. If you've enjoyed this conversation and would like to listen to more like this, search for Building Sounds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favourite podcast.